1, 2,
Standing
go.
by. You know it.
Here we go.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to and possibly watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie. Go Cowboys!
And we are your hairy heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy heavy homo to listen in or possibly stream in. Now, I want the world to know this, that we offered Caleb to push this episode to another time when he didn't have the inaugural Thursday night football game to contend with.
That's true. You offered.
We did offer.
I'm a team player, and I said, no, we've got a schedule. We'll stick to it. And also, because technology is readily available, I've got it right here, and we'll be watching it throughout the show.
All right.
So that everyone at home who is watching us can watch me watch the game, and you'll see my reactions and my mood swings in real time. So
Great. Well, yeah, I mean, I had no idea until these guys actually said it to me that tonight is kickoff for the season. And Caleb, I think it's your boys versus a lot of other people's boys.
Philadelphia Eagles, big time rivalry, NFC East rivals.
Yeah.
And I was
The boys
watching
of
it too
birds.
before we started, and I still can't believe what Jalen Carter did.
I speechless when I saw it happen. I'm like, did that really just anyway? So one of the Eagles' best defensive players got ejected just right off the bat. Just none of. So yeah, thanks, bro. Stay classy.
Wow.
Oh
Wow.
man!
Don't start spit, won't be spit.
And we also were engaged in a conversation prior to joining this live, and there's no way that ever could be on YouTube.
No, well, I mean that's for the Only Bears account.
No,
Yeah.
no.
When are we doing that? Anyway.
Hey, we could probably get some funding for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got $30 here. I'll just throw it your way.
Caleb, what got you into porn? Comics. Of all the things.
There you go. It was Batman. It was all Batman.
It was all Batman. It all comes back to Batman.
Look, Batman needs prep time. I need prep time. It just is what it is.
Yeah. So how were the last 14 days for you fellas?
It's been a little alternately slow and alternately crazy and stressful. So my husband is actually out in Colorado right now to be with his mom. My mother-in-law has not been doing too well, so yesterday he decided to just drop everything and fly out there so he could be with her and just kind of support his brother who lives there and some family friends that have been helping take care of her. She's in the hospital now, so he's been able to see her and visit her, and she's doing better today. So
That's good.
I'm pretty happy about that. But he's going to be out there for a couple of weeks until he feels okay enough to come back.
Yeah. I've been busy as H. So busy. I don't have anything planned this weekend, meeting somebody for dinner on Friday, but that's it. Like, there's nothing right now on the docket for Saturday, Sunday, and I need it.
Yeah.
I've been going out all the time. Went to 2 concerts.
You
last
did?
week, 9 Inch
You
Nails, and then this past Monday, saw my fellas in Oasis.
You saw the Oasis.
I saw the Oasis, yeah. And it was a great show. I know they're not everybody's favorite, but for what they are, let me tell you, you need to see them in a stadium.
I think to your point, I think so they are not my favorite, but I respect them. They're a band. It's like I'm never going to just choose to listen to them because I don't enjoy them, but I respect them for what they have done and who they are.
There's a lot of bands like that in my life too, like the Beastie Boys or Rush. Know, I respect the hell out of them. I would never choose to listen to them.
I love the Beastie Boys. Rush is that for me too. Rush comes on, I immediately am going to turn the station. Just do not care.
Yeah, but a documentary on Rush, I will watch.
Same. Well, and I'm like, Grateful Dead. I will watch and read about the Grateful Dead all day long. Do not ever need to listen to their music.
Yeah.
No, that's. I mean, having those concerts is great.
Yeah, and it was also I saw 9 Inch Nails before that.
I'm jealous of that one. That's the one I would have loved to.
Oh, Trent.
But for the first time that I saw Oasis, it was at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park. It was a club, and seeing them in the same state, with 62,000 people sold out in an arena 2 nights. It was in a stadium. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So.
And they got staying power. I guess part of that also because they broke up. I think the idea was that, well, maybe they won't get back together again. Mm-hmm. But people, will stick it out as fans. But also, just the fact that they're touring again and not at each other's throats.
One of my favorite quotes was when they first emerged, and Ray Davies of the Kinks said, "Oh, 2 brothers in a band. Good luck."
Seriously.
I mean, that was prophetic at that point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, it's like I've just been talking like Liam, like crazy, want some lasagna,
Can we hear about your opinions on the Spice Girls?
I'd have to work that up.
Yeah. Go back, watch the music awards.
There's some imitations I can just jump right into.
Steve,
like
Bill is a professional. Bill does not do improv.
Betty Botter bought a batter butter, said Betty, this batter's better. But there's some imitations I can just leap into, like Joan Rivers on anything, someone is going around saying they are Bert Hacker. I can just leap at Katharine Hepburn. I mean, there's certain ones, but I'd have to prep Liam talking about the Spice Girls.
How about Judy Garland doing Sweet Brown?
Well, I can do the Punchy Players as Judy Garland doing
Sweet Brown.
When you're a living legend. All right, we're veering way off. The last episode, the first half hour was just us talking bullshit. So
I had a good 2 weeks. That sums it up.
That's good. That's so awesome. Happy to hear that. I want to say that I had good and bad, and I'm tired from work. I'm just tired.
Yeah. Hub's out of town. Got a lot of stuff done. Actually went out to a bar. It was leather night at the local beer bar.
We all have the Hubs out of town.
Well, he's in town now, but he was out of town.
But we've had a period where you're out. Yeah.
Was single and did not mingle.
Yeah, it's true. I've basically been a home hermit since yesterday. I mean, this is not since yesterday, so I didn't even go out to the movies.
Anyway, moving on.
Cool.
I have gone out a lot. I've seen people I haven't seen in a long time. And one of the best things was going to a bear event, and somebody who I haven't seen in years just looked at me and said, "This is like seeing Bigfoot." But that's telling me I do have to get out there more. And I'm seriously thinking of going to the bear event in Delaware.
Okay.
In 2 weeks or so, yeah.
Is that like a Rehoboth or something?
It's in Rehoboth, and our friend Jeff is going to be performing there.
Oh, great. Yeah. Jeff Klein, check him out.
Yeah. And also, speaking of friends of the show, Gacy DC, I'm actually going to be able to see them now because the Sex Pistols postponed their tour because Steve Jones broke his wrist.
Saw that.
So now I have an opening to see them. So
excellent.
Yeah. But let's not talk about, we talked about,
let's talk about Superman. How about that?
Yeah.
We
have a little bit of news that dropped just a day ago.
Yeah. I'm excited for this. And, so I'm wondering if that was the reason that the Supergirl title for next year's Supergirl movie was changed from Woman of Tomorrow to just Supergirl, because in 2027 we're now expecting Superman, Man of Tomorrow. So maybe they didn't want to confuse people. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm excited. So now we actually do have a real sequel to Superman, specifically, the James Gunn Superman, where he's also now writing and directing, just like he did with this year's Superman. So hopefully we get that kind of continuity, the same feel, the same humor.
I don't see why we wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, with him, but sometimes for a sequel, especially if it's a rush decision, they might put somebody else in there because the original director is busy or doing something else. But
with him running the studio, come on.
Yeah, well, see, but this is the difference here, because he has that control, and he has that clout that if they're gonna greenlight a sequel, they're gonna want to keep him on there, and he's gonna want to stay on there. He's not gonna want to,
Yeah, I don't think that dynamic is in play at all here, or would ever want to been.
Well, exactly, which is very different from everywhere else and any other time in history, essentially. So hopefully, because of that kind of input and ability that James Gunn has with the studio right now, with DC Studios, that'll remain.
I will say, historically, for better or worse, out of the major studios, Warner Brothers has been pretty good in reserving sequels for the staff and the creative team that were involved before. Historically, they have been pretty good, for better or worse.
Have they said who the and they probably have, and I just have missed it. Have they said who's doing Supergirl? Like who's
the director is?
Yeah, have they announced that?
Yeah, I mean it's already in production.
It's finished production.
Yeah.
Or it's finished shooting.
It's finished principal.
It's Craig
principal
Gillespie.
Photography. It's
Craig Gillespie. Okay.
Craig Gillespie is the director of that. Yeah. But yeah, I think they've finished all principal photography, so now it's the grind of effects and editing and
fixing everything in post.
Yeah.
And according to Gunn, the script was shootable from the first draft. So
that's good to hear.
It's very good to hear.
Yeah, and right now they just started shooting Clayface, which is the next film that'll be coming out after Supergirl. And there was a little bit of excitement with that because there's apparently some pretty detailed props on set that give light to how big Gotham is and what constitutes Gotham. They've got posted map where they lay it out, where they show where everything is. And also they've already mentioned some of the other locations that are made famous by certain Rogues Gallery villains from Batman. So like the, I guess it's the, oh gosh, what's it called? Plants. It's a plant thing. It's not a, what is it called? Arboretum, yes, where Pam Ivy is famously a resident or sometimes overlord. But there's lots of other places in and around Gotham that are highlighted on this map that, have some historical importance to Batman. So even though Clayface is not, at this point, we don't know if Batman's actually going to show up. It is going to be focused on him and focused on Clayface's history and his sort of becoming Clayface. It'd be really interesting to not have Batman make a quick appearance.
Well, we have a release date for the next Batman movie now, don't we?
Yes, but that one is outside of the DCU, so that's sort of Matt Reeves. Batman 2 is going to be a little bit separate from everything else.
Yeah.
But
we already have had a sort of appearance of Batman in this universe in Creature Commandos.
Correct. Yeah.
And speaking of the sideshows, Bill, I know you're not kind of up to date on it, but I got caught up on the first 2 episodes at least of Peacemaker, and they're doing a really good job with that, with tying it into the overall universe. Really good job about letting that TV show be some kind of like connective tissue Between, I mean, Gotham is mentioned in the show. There's 2 characters that were from Gotham. You see elements that link back to what we saw in Superman with the Justice Gang and stuff like that. Again, not to spoil anything, but they're doing a good job about showing you how just interconnected. And that show has a very James Gunn feel to it as well. They've been doing a good job about carrying that over. So even and the reason that was the reason I was asking about who was going to be directing Supergirl, because I don't know. Obviously, you want those people to have their own artistic license and things like that to make it its own deal. But hopefully they will keep some type of tonal continuity, because even with Superman, it felt like a James Gunn movie. James Gunn has a particular style, and hopefully they will carry that through, because it works really well. I don't want it to all get stale and all feel like it's the same movie, so formulaic. I don't think it will, though, if they kind of stick to kind of what he's mapped out. It can be its own thing, but still have that feel where it all feels like it's this all feels like it blends together to some degree.
Right.
So
I like, and Peacemaker, I think, obviously he gets, it's an R-rated show, a TVMA, so he can, get away with the sex, the swearing, the extra bloody violence that you can't necessarily do, or he won't necessarily be able to do in the mainstream DCU movies that are rated, PG-13 or so. Clayface might be an exception. That might be more of I'd say more mature pick, and maybe
he's already said it's going to be an R-rated.
Yeah, so that's excellent. So that we might have that more of that feel to it, similar to a Peacemaker. But one of the biggest things, especially in the Peacemaker show, but also in the movies that James Gunn directs, is the music, the soundtracks. I mean, this season for Peacemaker alone, it's been banger after banger. Like, he just picks the best tracks to run different scenes against. And the end of episode 1 is a standout example, and then of course the end of episode 2, another standout example of just perfect music for these situations that he's creating, that are of course pretty wild and over the top, because it's James Gunn and Peacemaker.
That show really is just like, what if Steel Panther had a TV show?
It is a lot, and I love it, and the cast is fantastic. And one little bit of trivia, I think I mentioned this before, the new opening theme song, James Gunn was quoted. You mentioned
this last time, didn't you?
Yeah, but I quoted the theme song, but the dance sequence, James Gunn had recently mentioned in his podcast that the dance sequence took a lot longer and was much harder to choreograph because there were more terrible dancers this time around than there were the first time.
Okay.
But yeah, excellent show.
I will watch it. I swear to God, I will. There's not enough hours in the day right now.
Nope. I understand that completely.
Yep.
I'm missing episode 3 right now doing this.
Okay, you want to talk some comics?
I do.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, I'm going to start it off because I got a biggie.
Oh.
So, for the 4th time since 1940, you were able to go to a retail outlet and buy a Batman #1. I have the standard version, which is coming in my DCBS box. Steve, I know you've pre-ordered it too. I know Caleb's probably going to wait till it's on the DC app that he has a deal for. But I wasn't able to get one of the black bag issues. Oh shoot, Steve! I didn't send you any graphics. Shoot, sorry about that.
I got a picture. It's all
good. You got some others from this?
No, that's it. That's the one.
Well, anyway, that's the cover by Jorge Jiménez, and I think it's safe to say that this is already bordering on iconic. There's already been like some imitations of it using other characters that have been pretty funny. As I mentioned there, Jorge Jiménez, who has been on the title for years at this point as the artist, he's not leaving. And he said so, like, you're going to have to like pry him off, or, different life experiences will affect him to get him off this title. He's determined to stay in this title as long as he can. New logo for Batman and the new writer in the form of Matt Fraction. Matt's been away from comics for a few years, most notably due to his role as co-creator and showrunner of Monarch. And he comes back, and one of the things that I really liked about this is sometimes when you have a fairly marquee writer, they just toss everything out and kind of start from fresh. We're going to be talking about another prominent creator later, and he's done this a couple times. But luckily for him, it's always worked. But Matt didn't do that. There are developments that have happened in Gotham over the last few years. Bruce losing a sizable portion of his fortune, Alfred Pennyworth being unalived, Vandal Savage becoming the commissioner of the Gotham City Police Department, and James Gordon going back down to being a beat cop. These are all developments that have happened through the last 3 or 4 years, and that dynamic is still in place. So it was really nice to see that he's like kind of playing with what the cards that he has and still crafting something special. So this is the first issue, and what happens in the beginning is that Killer Croc, who has been under evaluation by a doctor named a female doctor, Dr. Zeller, who from the first instant you can feel that there's like a chemistry between Batman and Zeller. She's been treating Croc for months now, and Croc is kind of reverting into childhood, and they're trying to determine what exactly is the cause of this. Croc escapes, and he basically eats the zoo. That's basically what happens. And the main portion of the first issue is Batman going through Gotham and trying to anticipate where Croc is going to be through the next step. And he has an assistant here. He has an AI Alfred who has all of Alfred's canniness, all of his sarcasm, and all of his loyalty to Bruce. And the AI is advanced enough that he can actually step out of the Batmobile and the Batcave and talk and basically assist in the adventures in some ways. So Batman reaches up to Killer Croc, and it's very obvious that there's more that's afoot. And there's some like borderline tender moments with Croc, because again, Croc has been reverting to childhood, and he has a dinosaur toy. And Batman, to calm him down, says, I had a big one of these where I lived. And there's such a touching moment in that Croc gives him his dinosaur toy. It's like, I can't believe I'm touched in an issue of Batman in an action like that. But as I said, with things going on, there's obviously more that's afoot than just Croc losing his crap and escaping and eating a zoo. The art it's really good. Now Jimenez, he's been a force of nature for some time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not surprising.
That's not new. But it seems with him that like he's treating every break in the action with Batman as a chance to do new things. And I also have to give really huge kudos in this first issue to the color scheme that's used. You see like a lot of colors that you don't necessarily associate with Batman often. There's a lot of like I said, like purple is a color you associate with the Joker. It's different hues of purple that are used, different hues of blue. And the colorist for this is Tomu Mori.
Yep.
And I mean, just the first double page spread. I mean, just look at that. So subtle, but it's also kind of sweet that the the title of the issue is Vast Colors in the Dark. So, is this a first issue for the ages? No, but in terms of it being a soft reset, it does the job beautifully. And Fraction is, he's smart as a whip. And you can tell that there are things being laid out, gently in this first arc, in this first issue of what I assume is going to be a 6-issue arc, that we know are going to pay off later, but probably not in ways that you think. So, in terms of a commercially minded book, I think you could certainly do worse than Batman #1.
So it's interesting because what's going on that Killer Croc is a character here that has some importance, because going on the absolute side of things, in Absolute Batman, Killer Croc has made his first real appearance. I think it was in issue number 10, where, Bruce's really good friend that he was training to, be to beat this other boxer, and who had disappeared, had been, of course, transformed to a giant crocodile in that one. So it's interesting that he's in both the the new main Batman title, but also Absolute Batman as a character who's now who's presenting as a friendship with Bruce. And
that's
a
lot of the characters in Absolute Batman.
Yeah.
A lot of
all of his villains for the most part
in different continuities. Yeah,
exactly. But now in the main Batman title, there's a softening of the character, literally and figuratively, but that he's now getting a relationship with Batman that's not just antagonistic.
Yeah,
which is pretty neat.
So good first issue.
Need to get caught up on the absolutes, or at least Absolute Batman. I kind of fell off. It did not. I know a lot of people love that series. I did not cotton to it nearly as much as other people did.
Yeah, me either.
Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Martian Manhunter, amazing. I actually like the Absolute Superman to agree. I know a lot of people didn't care who said that's the weakest link, but I thought it was okay. I just wasn't super crazy about what they were doing with Absolute Batman, so I need to go back and catch that up. But Bill, I wanted to go back to the AI Alfred thing, because obviously I haven't read this, so I'm not making any kind of statement on the quality or how well it was done or anything like that. But if we think about some comics, or we think about our world, yeah, an AI Alfred that can step outside of a car and stuff, that's big doings, right? That's insane technology. But in the DC world, where there's already effectively AI, why it's so how did they address that at all? Have they talked about that?
There is a recent issue of Mr. Terrific Year 1, and the suggestion is that this was a gift from Michael Holt to Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
And if somebody could put something like that together, it probably is Michael Holt.
Yeah.
I have to read the issue to see if that's on, if that aligns with the rumor there.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like Red Tornado. I mean, we've got the Metal Men to some degree, which are kind of AI. I mean, but there's robotic creatures and robotic beings that are fully fledged in the DC universe, and so it kind of goes to like, okay, well, why didn't they do this before? So I was wondering if that had been addressed or not, because it just seems like in that world it wouldn't be that big of a thing.
Yeah,
but obviously
not within the 22 pages.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there was a bit more concentration on the action than the exploration of stuff like that.
Well, it's the first issue. I mean,
and with Fraction, there is going to be an issue at some point that we'll dive into that, I'm sure, because he doesn't like leaving that many strings sort of untied.
Not for long,
No,
I always think of the Invincible Iron Man, and anything that was dangling was tied up at some point. He wasn't Chris Claremont in the 80s.
Or Jonathan Hickman, who's like, I've got all these breadcrumbs, and then like the birds have eaten them by the time you get around to finding where they were. But that's cool. I'm looking forward to reading it.
But in terms of a commercial book, there's a level of excitement to it that only a #1 can afford, And that was one of the reasons why I didn't wait for DCBS this time. And I also got a pretty cool Jorge Jimenez, design.
Nice.
That's neat.
Dude, I saw somebody post online earlier. There's I guess some doings about some of the variant covers. Like somebody was selling like bagged Jorge metallic covers for like
Mhm.
1,300 online.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is insane to
That's
me,
just the
man.
thing.
Like,
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
did
there
get,
was
I did,
also like some opening and selling before the street date, kind of thing.
yeah.
That was a little bit of an issue. But it's amazing, like the stores that were buying these. I mean, it was a one in a. I don't know what the ratio was. It was like 1 in 50, 1 in 100 bagged comics would actually have the metallic cover. So they were finding, which one had the metallic cover, because I guess you could kind of see it if you looked
Yeah.
at it in certain light.
I think it was 1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000.
They do have them listed over here. They do have them
Wow.
listed over here. And there's
I
some
guess
nice
that's one of
covers in
the.
there.
Say in post COVID, I guess this is the first time I've really heard about the speculator market doing old school speculator market things, and maybe that's just because I don't know if it's because I haven't seen it or like I walked
Yeah.
away from my LCS earlier this year for reasons.
I think the only other time since the pandemic that there was anything like that was maybe the Turtles' Last Ronin, and even that was like so niche.
Yeah.
That I don't think this is this, and that's also something that was like there kind of was this like image feel, in not so much in the book, but in the terms of like me wanting to get it on the first day,
Right.
you know. I can wait usually, and do often, the whole month sometimes for books, but I don't know. There was something about yesterday that was telling me, just go get this and have a very current book to talk about.
Well, and you were talking about like, you haven't really felt this kind of speculation in the past 5 years or so, but the closest thing that I'm thinking of is Mark Spear's Monsters. Because
yeah,
there
but
are
again, that's like so
many.
niche.
It's very niche. It's very niche, but it's like if you can get those early variants for like the first couple of issues, it's a huge deal. And each one, each subsequent issue now has like specialty variants that they're putting out. And
that's like the collectors among the collectors. That's
very much.
That's a very deep dive. You're talking there about like, and I think this is probably a good analogy, pre-Unity books versus Youngblood #1. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, I know I
don't know what to do on an episode where you go first. I don't know who goes next.
I'm going to pick you, Cale, because you have an image book to talk about.
I do have an image book.
Yeah, so let's go with you.
Kind of segues into what you were talking about. So, I had a new image book drop this week that I decided to read based on based on one of the creators whose name was attached to it, and I was like, okay, I want to check this out. And that book is none other than called Everything Dead and Dying from Image Comics. And this is written by Tate Bromble with art by Jacob Phillips, some colors by Jacob Phillips, which is that's the creator that I saw, and I'm like, oh, okay, I associate greatness with him and his dad, so I'm gonna go check that out. But it also had some colors by Pip Martin, who I'd never really seen color books, but letters by Aditya Bidikar, who I think is a fantastic letterer, probably one of the top 10 letterers in comics right now as far as people I follow and pay attention to. I think does a really great job. And I really didn't know anything about the book going into it. I mean, obviously you can glean certain things by the cover when you're looking at this, but just kind of broach right into the story. It really is the story about this man named Jack Chandler. And Jack he's a farmer. He is kind of he's from a rural area, very kind of both important to the story in subversive ways, but not really to the plot of the story. Jack is gay. Like, he grew up in a rural area, grew up on a farm. He knew he was attracted to men. He's gay. Obviously, rural life doesn't necessarily mesh with being queer and growing up in rural America. I mean, I'm from a town of 400 people. I grew up on a farm. Very much know what that's like. So he, was never accepted. Always thought he was going to have to hide it, but life did not treat him that way. He kind of fell in love once and had to keep it a secret, and just decided never again. So he ends up finding and, meeting this other man, and falling deeply and madly in love, and they have a life together. And all of a sudden he, moves back to this rural area and becomes a part of the community, and things aren't necessarily as bad as what he thought. He didn't have to keep it a secret, and he has things that he never thought he would have. Totally relating to me on that level. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really close to the heart on my stuff. They end up adopting a kid, and they have a family together, and it's really this kind of perfect, seemingly perfect life, where they're having this kind of rustic rural life and raising this child that they deeply love, and everything is okay. But if you notice from that cover, it's a image of him milking a cow that's half skeleton, right? It's half rotting. And this very quickly turns into a zombie story. As the book progresses, and he kind of sets the scene, and then it just shows you the destruction that happens around him. In this world, there is some sort of virus that starts with the animals. It's not really being spread. It doesn't seem like by being bit or anything like that. It just seems like a virus that is, people get sick and they die, and then they reanimate and they need to eat, but they're not, at least from what we've seen, they are, there's not hordes of zombies roaming around trying to eat everybody, because everybody kind of always died at once. Or at least that's what it seems like, except for Mr. Chandler, because he seems to be immune. And so he's had the misfortune of living in this world and, finally having the life that he wanted, all just to see it fall apart, and everybody he loves and cares about die. But he does something strange in the book, right? And so instead of, saying, hey, my family's dead, he has these reanimated zombies of the people that he loves, and he's living in the house, and he takes care of them, and he feeds them, and he's around them, but they're not these ravenous creatures, it doesn't seem like. And so he kind of keeps with their routine and stays close to them. He talks to them. The book does this really cool thing where some of the pages are drawn, it all seems like it's real time. And so sometimes you're seeing images of what these people would look like in a normal world in real life, and what his life would look like if everything was fine and dandy. And then other times, as the book progresses and kind of slowly reveals and kind of takes the curtain away, you start to realize that, okay, well, he's living in squalor in this broken down world, and the people around him are dead, and he's doing his best to maintain, and he's the only one left alive, and he's doing everything to keep his own humanity by imagining the humanity in the other people. And it's very heartbreaking in that sense. But again, it doesn't feel like he's in any real danger being around them. He gets up and he makes pancakes, and as in his brain, he's making just a nice breakfast for these folks. And then they reveal at the back end that, well, he's grinding up meat and feeding it to them, something like that. And as far as he knows, and I don't want to get too much into it without spoiling things, but that's the crux of the story. As far as he knows, he's the last living person. That turns out not to be true, and you see that kind of in the final pages. And I'll just leave it at that as far as the plot goes. But this book really, like, I don't particularly care for zombie stories. I mean, some zombie stories are great. You've seen enough zombie stories. You're just like, okay, we've dealt with that. It's kind of rinse and repeat. It's a kind of its own genre now. This does something that seems a little bit different. It really plays with the emotions. It shows you people's lives. It does this thing where it makes you, at least for me, fall in love with these characters, and it's kind of hopeful. Honestly, if I had to say the closest thing to something like this that I've seen in media, not necessarily in comics, is that third episode of what's the plant zombie?
The Last of Us.
The Last of Us, yeah. It's that third episode of The Last of Us. Very similar in tone, very similar in feel to that, except for the threat factor, right? And if you just watch, if you watch that episode, you can just watch that episode in and of itself, and it could just be its own thing. And this first episode or first issue of Everything Dead and Dying kind of sets that same theme, except where The Last of Us is a background episode. This is going to be the main theme of the story, and it's going to carry out. And there's now the external threat, very much like The Walking Dead. The external threat is now the living people, and that's really what you got to watch out for. So, not necessarily reinventing the wheel with this one, not necessarily anything that we haven't seen before, but just told in a really interesting way. And then the art. Man, Jacob Phillips is outstanding. The first time I saw Jacob Phillips's work was he was coloring Sean Phillips on the Brubaker Phillips books, and you're just like, man, the apple did not fall far from the tree on that one. His art, his sensibilities are very much in line with what his dad does. There's literally a genetic thread that runs between both the art as well as the people. But it doesn't feel like a carbon copy, and that's what I think is interesting, right? Because we talk about it all the time, like, this artist is a clone of Jim Lee, or this artist is a clone of Perez, Phil Jimenez, a clone of Perez to some degree. We talk about those. This does not feel cloned. It feels like its own thing, but it also is damn near identical. And I don't know what magic is in that to where it feels that way. But to me, it's like they are both of the same cloth, but they're not interchangeable. And I can't put my finger on what exactly gives them their own unique identity, because they are so visually similar. And I just think it's very, very interesting to see him develop as his own creator and now creating his own art. I cannot, I always say this, can't really wait to see where this goes. I think it's going to be a fun series. I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be a 6-issue to start off with. It's going to be built for the trade. Tate Bromble I've read a few of Tate's books before. This is probably some of the best writing I've seen from Tate.
Okay. Because I loved Barbalian.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that series. I didn't connect at all with Justice League Dark, and I know I'm like kind of in a minority. I didn't connect with that at all. Batgirl was good, it was good. I mean, I don't want to say it was substandard, but it felt like there was like this promise, and then like kind of, just stuff that didn't inspire me. I don't want to say it was uninspired, but it didn't inspire me. It just wasn't stuff that wasn't connecting. So
interesting.
I'm glad to read something like this. This sounds like something I probably would like lean toward getting in a trade.
I think it's
especially with Image's price points for the first volume.
I think it's going to be really good in trade. It is going to be something, after reading that first issue, because it's not, at least that first issue, not exactly a plot heavy story, right? It's kind of a lot of background, but honestly, most of the mechanics of the story, most of that background is told in the art. Like it's very sparse with the wording, but you're getting that full kind of history, built in and built up in that. I was going to say the last thing I read, I loved Barbalian, I thought it was fantastic, but the last thing I read by Bromwell that I thought was really, really good was The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. That was a fun story.
Which is continuing, so that there is a second volume that's running now. Just I think issue number 3 is coming out this month.
And just highly recommend Everything Dead and Dying for what it is. If you like zombies, you're going to be happy. If you like gut, punches to the gut and pulling at the heartstrings, you're going to be happy. If you enjoyed that, if you enjoyed Nick Offerman, who doesn't? God, I'd love that man. If you enjoy that, then you'll like this. So go check that out.
Okay, cool. All right, Steve, I know you're used to going first, but we'll put you in the third spot. So why don't you tell us about a book you're reading that you're enjoying?
Well, book that I'm reading is actually a Kickstarter first issue that I just received. They just opened the Kickstarter for issue number 2. We are big fans here on the show of the 2 women who were instrumental in a couple other series that we really loved, like Alice in Leatherland. But I'm talking about No Saints Nor Poets, number 1, which is the new Yolanda Zanfardino and Elisa Romboli, as well as Ilaria Chioka on colors for this time. Let me see if I can go ahead and share that so you can look at that beautiful cover. But this, I just received this, so this was kickstarted earlier this year, and they were able to to completely get them out. I think most people should have their issues if you did back it, but it will be available for sale and purchase through Tightrope Press's own website at some point, but you could also get it through the new Kickstarter. This book series, it's a new concept for them. Basically, it takes place in the city called Serena, a few years after a great flood. So it's very kind of like Venice, but like Venice after a really terrible disaster, where the majority of the regular people live outside of the walls of the central city that's been basically, walled off just for the elites. And outside the city, everybody is, does all their business around the water. So, any buildings that haven't been fully submerged are on stilts. Everybody gets around by sort of motorized gondolas. And also there are strange fantasy creatures that make life a little bit more dangerous for the people who are living outside of the walls. And the main two characters here are Flynn, who's a crazy hothead. He's very openly gay and very ambitious. He wants to, basically make a name for himself. And he is partnered up with a man named Pierre, who is a former priest and is a little bit more level-headed, of course. They work together as delivery guys. So basically anybody who wants some kind of crazy delivery, whether it's getting a monster giant dragon creature that's been, making life difficult for market people, or just moving things from point A to point B. That's pretty much how they make their living. Now, the two of them are not a couple, but clearly they do have feelings for each other. They're just not very good at expressing them. It's clear to everybody else around them, and there's a really fun little moment of dialogue with an elderly woman talking with Pierre about his relationship with Flynn. But in this book, it really sort of sets up the world, sets up the tone right away. It's got some humor, but obviously there's a lot of mystery here. We don't know what caused the great disaster. We don't know what's really going on behind the walls in the great city. We know the rich and powerful are up there, and there's also a church that's kind of running things inside the city. But in this first issue, they're given the chance to see a little bit more inside the walls by helping out a particular celebrity, maybe elite member, to transport her to somewhere new. And that sets it all up for the next several issues, which again are going to be coming out through Kickstarter. They'll be funding each issue this way, but then again, after they're published, they will be available for purchase. But it's fun, and if you have been following Yolanda and Elisa with all their other works, this is definitely it feels like them. It is just fun. The art is wonderful and colorful. And again, thank you to Ilaria Chioco for her colors as well. But yeah, just really a lot of fun. And I've been looking forward to reading this for several months. And it's sad that I have to wait several more months until the second issue. But I immediately, the first day that they posted the Kickstarter for the latest, I immediately backed it. So hopefully I will be seeing more of it soon. But it's pretty cool. It's fun. It's dynamic. Totally recommend it.
How many collaborations have those two done at this point?
Oh my gosh. I mean, they've done so much. I know that they've had the books they've done together. That I'm trying to think. Let's see, because I've read most of them.
We don't have to go through it. I thought if you knew it offhand,
but yeah, I mean they're pretty good. But they've also had their own projects as well, so they don't just work together. They've had other projects they've been put out. But I mean this is one of their projects I've been really looking forward to.
The cover to that, the sensibilities of the cover to that are amazing. Like I mean, I've gotten to the point that I don't particularly care about covers anymore, and maybe that's just an aspect of reading digitally a lot. But that cover is amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh, they do a really good job. This cover has been, it's been posted. It was one of the first major pieces of art that they put out, to promote the original Kickstarter. But yeah, I'm I just love everything that they do. So I'm a little biased, but I do recommend it. I do want to push that, and I can put out the Kickstarter link, in the show notes, about that, because I think they
Do
really
you know
need to have.
offhand how long it goes?
It literally just started, I think, yesterday, so it's got another
Okay.
30 days from today. So,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Okay. I'll take the next spot. I have a Dark Horse book, and I'm bad with Dark Horse solicits, because I basically scan for Black Hammer, and that's it. They haven't had much in terms of Stranger Things lately, so I haven't had much with Black Hammer either. So, I kind of don't scrutinize Dark Horse as much as I should. I know somebody like Steve who, basically gets everything Hellboy and BPRD related. It's a different story, but for me, Dark Horse, I should analyze the solicits more than I do, because I did not know about this book. And I'm glad I went to the shop to get Batman #1 to get this. And this book is The Adventures of Lumen N, with James Robinson on the writing duties and Phil Hester on art duties. Steve, do you have a graphic of this so that I don't have to keep holding this? Yeah. This is one of many covers that came out for the first issue. And James Robinson is one of my favorite writers. Starman probably is my favorite comic book series of all time. Probably is. I'd have to do some thinking about it, but I really don't think of much that would topple it in that particular competition. So with The Adventures of Lumen N, it's a 4-issue miniseries, and Robinson's really good with stories of that length. Some of the Starman arcs were 4 issues. His excellent Airboy series was 4 issues. So this is a good length for him to operate in. And if you also are familiar with his past work, if you loved Leave It to Chance, which was his series with Paul Smith about magicians, this also has a lot of connective tissue to that. Not in terms of the stories, but in terms of feel, and in terms of also being an all ages book, which there aren't enough of right now. So, Adventures of Lumen N, what is happening here? We start with a mysterious island. That's all I'll say. And there's somebody living there. And if you can see in the cover right there, that person is basically standing behind Lumen N. And we hear some inner monologue from this individual. And he decides it is time to leave this island because his granddaughter, it turns out, Lumen, has something big's about to brew. So she's living in this very remote, I want to say compound in Bundelkhand, India in 1901. And this version of 1901 is just enough steampunk to call it steampunk. When you're looking at the weapons that are used throughout here, and some of the costume and character designs. So she is being brought up, tutored in French and in the arts of fighting. And the rationale behind this was that her father wanted her to be prepared. There's this through line about, that he wanted his mother was French, so he wanted her to know that language. But there's more that's brewing than that, obviously. So she's being brought up. She's also with her younger brother, and they have a pet monkey, Iggy, and a pet tiger, Miss Stripes. I think they're going to become major characters in this. And while she is deep in her studies, there are a group of assassins that come to take her out. And this group of assassins is not prepared for the fight that is brought against them, but it's still in terms of the numbers, they're at a disadvantage. And then all of a sudden, the person at the beginning of the issue, the person who turns out to be her grandfather, comes and I wouldn't say rescues her, but helps give her an advantage. And then we find out who he is. And it turns out he's a very famous character from literature. And this was a nice twist. Like I said, if Leave It to Chance is your thing, if there even is, like, I would have to say, though it's not really something that's in my wheelhouse, that sort of fun, this can go anywhere you can think about it going, element of One Piece is in there as well. Plus, you have the elements of steampunk. You have the, reliable storytelling of Phil Hester. And, I love seeing Phil Hester. This is somebody who, began his career in the very late 80s. And look in the last few years, look at, Bendis and Tom King. He's still working with powerhouse writers. He's a very reliable creator. And a lot of, though he's not credited as a co-writer, I can't imagine that the creative sessions between the two of them aren't really charged, and a lot of his ideas are incorporated. Since there are question marks hanging over this world, and as I said, that there are literary connections that exist outside of this particular book, we also have a 3-page annotation from James Robinson, which is very handy and makes you go, about where the story might go. And like I said,
love an annotation.
Yeah. And like I said, one of the biggest attractions of this, you can give this book to any age. If you want to give it to an 8-year-old, provided that they're nuanced enough to catch some of the like more flighty dialogue, you can do that. But it's an all ages book through and through. It's got a cool tiger. Anything with a cool tiger, and I'm there. And as I said, it's a 4-issue miniseries, and I'm so glad I went to my comic shop, because I would be just like punching myself if I found out about this series at the 3rd issue. So I love pleasant surprises, and I'm kind of kicking myself that I don't examine solicits as closely as I should. And some of that's previews, and how that is, gradually went down the drain. But I offer a big recommendation. If you loved James Robinson's book, if you love high adventure, and just, worlds that are part of ours but are a little different, this is really up your street. The Adventures of Lumen N from Dark Horse Comics.
Bill, can I make a guess on something?
Yeah.
You said that her grandfather was a well-known person in literature, or I guess stories.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it.
Okay. Just tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. Is it Nemo?
Fuck you.
Sorry if that spoiled it.
I thought the same thing.
You know what? Honestly, though, if you just like Google the name of this book, it's all over.
Okay, so I hope I didn't spoil anything, but
yeah,
judging by the tone of the book, judging by what I know of James Robinson, and having read some of the stuff like here, and just the things that you were talking about, you said that at first, I was like, this feels very, kind of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen-ish.
But,
right?
And he talks about that in the annotations, he wants to go for a very different feel.
Yeah.
He loves Alan Moore's work, but he thinks that with that particular dynamic of using public domain characters, that there are different avenues you can go down with it.
Right.
Oh,
and
I
this
wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly. But it was saying that, I was like, man, if that's who that is, that fits perfect. Like,
and I just I gave it away with Mysterious Island,
Mysterious Island, India.
Yeah, well, to some degree, but I mean, the Indian element did kind of key it in too. Yeah. But I mean, there could be a lot of characters that in that too.
Yeah.
Right. But okay, I'm on board. I need to go check this out. I wonder if it's going to hit.
and honestly, this is some of, Phil Hester is always a solid artist, but it looks like with this one, he's really having fun.
That's good.
It looks like he's really having fun between the fighting and there are characters that are briefly introduced that are mentioned in the annotations will become much bigger presences as the four issues transpire. I love pleasant surprises, and this was one.
Just as an FYI, Daniel Williamson, who's been chatting with us on YouTube, he does comment, Miss Stripes is a great name for a fancy tiger. It certainly is. I absolutely agree.
Look at Miss Stripes on her back, just chilling among her friends. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Go get it. I especially think the two of you would like it.
I know I will.
I really do think you will.
I definitely know I will. It's been a while since I've read a James Robinson book, and it's
been a while since there's been a James Robinson book.
I know, but like a 4-issue mini with the potential obviously to continue. But a 4-issue mini is a perfect length. For
luckily Jeff Johns got him involved in Stargirl, and he had some other television credits from that.
Right.
But it's nice to see him back in this medium too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think the last thing that I remember from him was his Rebirth run on Wonder Woman.
Oh,
that's the last thing I can remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot that he did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't I don't think I've seen a solicitor or haven't seen anything that wasn't reprint of his older stuff. I mean, the omnibus or compendium of Starman that came out a few years ago that I picked up was probably the biggest thing I've seen released from him. Well, I also have a Dark Horse book, if Caleb, if you wouldn't mind me jumping ahead. So as Bill had mentioned, when it comes to Dark Horse, I do, keep my eyes out for what they have. The Christopher Chaos series and now the volume 2 on that, I've been picking that up, and that's a Dark Horse book. But one that I always look for anything from Mignola's, I believe it's called Curious Objects now, is the sort of sub label that he has on his Dark Horse books that are for Hellboy and any of the extended universe. And in fact, he did just start a new Hellboy series. This one is actually a continuation of it's sort of an ongoing series of minis that he's had over the past couple of years called Hellboy in Love. And this one is, I believe, the 4th Hellboy in Love series. And this one's called The Art of Fire. Now it's just a 2-parter, so there's only going to be two issues for this, which is perfect. And one of the best things about Hellboy and the original BPRD is that they usually had these very short minis. So you had pretty much the one and done. The one shots that would come out, or a 2-issue, and that would be perfect for them. But this Hellboy in Love, this is one of, as you said, this is the 4th one of these, and it features Hellboy with his ongoing relationship with Anastasia Bransfeld. And it takes place in the late 70s to the early 80s, and she is an archaeologist for the British Museum of History. And he has pretty much abandoned the BPRD at this point, so he can go and spend as much time as possible with, his sweetheart. And she's a good match for him. She's fearless. She doesn't care what anybody thinks. She goes headlong into danger and drags him along with her. And he's more than happy to go. And in this case, he's the one dragging her along. And essentially, she was first introduced in a Christopher Golden book. Let's see if I have that name. It was a Hellboy novel that came out a few years back. And he introduced the character there. But her origin essentially is that she was on an excavation in Iceland under a volcano and came across what appeared to be a perfectly preserved body of a person along with a whole bunch of archaic writing that predated the last volcanic eruption. So this is it's not even Pompeii. Like Pompeii, these are the molds of people, not actual bodies. But this was an actual sort of preserved body in the magma, which sort of got her neurons firing that, hey, supernatural things might actually be real. There's something more to this. And subsequently, she found out that that is an example of a witch, a real sort of magic using person, ancient, who had been in some kind of pursuit in that volcano. And over the course of several miniseries, she's been following up on this, looking for something called the Sauron Artea, which is some kind of mystical fire. For those of you who have been reading Hellboy for years, or BPRD, that's part of what's known as the Vril energy that predates humanity, goes all the way back to the ancient times of Hyperborea, all of that stuff. Well, in this series, Hellboy is like, hey, I'm going to take you on a date back to Iceland so we can go and visit that same volcano, because now that you've learned all these things and we've had all these adventures together, I think maybe we can get some more information out of that randomly magmatized corpse that you found. Because guess what? I know resurrection spell. I've been using it before. Like, I brought people back from the dead so you can talk to them. And so, of course, they do. And it creates a lot of danger, a lot of craziness. But they do get the witch to talk. And talk she does, and, fills Anastasia and Hellboy in on some interesting secrets within the Hellboy universe, pertaining to the Vril energy and the history of using that magic line, those ley lines, and that energy to bring supernatural and magical beings together from all over the world. Leaves, of course, on a cliffhanger, which obviously we always expect. I mean, this is something that we come to expect for any Hellboy or BPRD miniseries. But my favorite part about this, I think, is the intimate, quiet moments. And the artwork here is by Alex Nito, and he's been doing a couple other series for the Curious Objects imprint. And I just like it. It's simple. It fits with the feel of a Hellboy comic, but it feels also very human. There's something very gentle about it. Obviously colors are very subdued. We're looking at greens and reds, and it's almost monochrome, with the exception of Hellboy himself really being the only deep red thing. And of course her hair. But I like the simplicity of it. I like the subdued nature of the artwork until you get the crazy supernatural stuff happening. We also get a quick glance of life at the BPRD headquarters in Connecticut at this time, where we do have two of the other members that we all, enjoy reading in later issues, but just kind of living their lives without Hellboy, because Hellboy hasn't been around, so they haven't really done any missions while he's been kind of off gallivanting with his lady. But it's pretty cool. I enjoy it as always. Seeing these glimpses into Hellboy's history and his development that we didn't really get to see in the main title. And especially now that if you've been reading Mignolaverse stuff, that world is long ended, and the end of the world has come and gone, and now basically we're looking at the far future with Frankenstein in the New World. But going back to the 60s, the 70s, the 80s in these Hellboy stories and these BPRD stories, it's just been so much fun, because you get to play with a lot of this mythology that we didn't get to see previously, but now he can just expand on all of this. And this is how they got the experience. This is how Hellboy got his complete and utter boredom with life and cynicism from with all these interesting adventures that we now get to see. So I don't know if anybody's been reading any Hellboy recently, or is it just me?
Just you, I think, on this end, and not for lack of just loving that. I need to check out and read more Hellboy. I need to dive more into that universe. I've read
Mm-hmm.
that is a little bit of a blind spot for me. I've read a lot of like The Plague of Frogs, that kind of stuff. I've read some Lobster Johnson, but I've never dived in super into the Magnolia verse. And it's one of those reasons. It's just because there's so much of it and it's a little bit daunting. And I know that once I do, it's going to be so kind of like I just did. I just got through reading kind of all of the Everett Submariners, like from the very get-go, the old timely stuff all the way through the 7th Masterworks volume. And it's because once I get on that kind of topic, I just want to go all the way through, and I've kind of set a project. It's going to be like that for me once I start diving into the Magnolia verse, which means I'm not going to have a lot of time to read anything else, and it's kind of like a daunting thing. So I haven't done that yet, but it is on my list of to do.
Well,
I've got to
I
get
think
the rest of Swamp Thing too.
Oh yeah, there's only a little bit of that, but yeah, I think one of the best things about the Magnolaverse is that you can jump in pretty much anywhere.
Yeah,
and if you were reading these along while they were being published, he loved to jump around a lot too. So there was a lot of back and forth. This takes place in the 40s. This takes place in the 90s. This takes place in the 2000s. This takes place in the 60s. There's a lot of that jumping around and gaps. And, I'm not sure how much he planned this 30 years ago, but leaving those gaps open gives him the ability and gives other, writers that he brings in, the ability to just jump in pretty much anywhere and create a new story that doesn't necessarily have to connect with things that came before or come after it, but just sort of give a glimpse into the life of these, these paranormal adventurers, these investigators that get involved in vampires and, mushroom zombies and frog people and giant elder things from beyond the universe. So it's just, it's a lot of fun. And, if you have been following a lot of it, there's so much time, there's so much lore. If you haven't, it gives you a little taste of it and allows you to just jump off and find your own path through it. Bill, you're on mute.
I'm very sorry. I'm in an even more compromised position than Caleb because I think I've read Seeds of Destruction, like everybody.
Yeah.
Read BPRD 1946.
That was a good one.
And that was good. And I think maybe one or two other series and like some of the previews of Baltimore. And I've liked everything I've read, but it's like, only so many hours in the day, and also, Christopher Golden is a Facebook friend. Have you ever seen him?
I have seen some pictures. He's dreamy.
Is he young?
Well, I mean, he and Magnola are both pretty dreamy. I do recommend seeing that. Well, I know Golden. Yeah, come on. Both of them, though.
No, they are on the same plane.
No. But they're both they're very cuddly and yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Caleb, we still have one more book to discuss, and that's yours. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I will. And so the book I want to talk about is a little bit different. It is about comics, but it's not comics in and of itself. But before I get to that, I just want to give you an update. Philly is currently winning. It's 24-20, but the game has been suspended because of a lightning in the area. So we're going to
That's my area.
Yeah, it's throwing down like lightning storm everywhere. So, stay tuned and we'll find out later. 4-point lead for Philly.
I had that earlier today. Lightning and
there was nothing in the forecast.
It has been suspended. We are in the third quarter game.
Okay, so now I have like a 35% chance of rain at like midnight.
Well, what's crazy is
no lightning. Though. I guess I'm far enough away.
But it doesn't even look like it's raining. There's just lightning happening everywhere because I don't know. But anyway, so just wanted to update you guys on that. So the book I want to talk about is just, to rip the Band-Aid off. It is the new memoir by Jeff Lemire called 10,000 Ink Stains. I've been very, very honest about my love affair with the work of Jeff Lemire and the stuff that he's done, which I want to be full. Also, in the spirit of honesty, I've not read everything that Jeff Lemire has done. I've read most of it, but I still there's actually some pretty big gaps in the stuff. I've never finished Sweet Tooth. So I need to go back and do that. I've read Descender, but I've never read Ascender. And so there are some big names in the Jeff Lemire pantheon of things that I haven't read. But for me, the critical Jeff Lemire is going to be his more personal work, and then obviously Black Hammer, like we mentioned earlier. But I cannot be objective any longer about Jeff Lemire's work. That's how much I enjoy him. I really can't. It's very hard for me. I love his line. I love what he does. I love his stories, and I just gravitate to him. And so when I found out he was doing this memoir where he actually goes back and starts from the very beginning and starts talking through, all of his work through his current, for just now. I mean, very, very recently. I wanted to get it, and just to see what he had to say and to look at the back matter, because he shows you some of his sketchbooks and things like that. And it was absolutely fascinating for me from both somebody who, and we've had this conversation. I love craft talk almost as much as I love comics. You give me a good story and a good narrative, great, but you give me craft talk where you're talking about the types of materials that you use and the development of your art and the way you develop story and stuff. I love that. I read craft writing books, even though I hardly write anymore, which I need to do more of. I just think it's fascinating because you dive into that. And that's a lot of what this is. He starts off in the very beginning talking about how he grew up on a farm in rural Canada and how he became obsessed with comic books. He spent a lot of time alone. He was not a rough and tumble kid. He loved to draw, but he was always just a kind of a thing that he did to pass the time. And it wasn't until later on in life that he did start drawing and kind of developing for it, but developing a taste for it. Talks about why he chose to go to film school and how he wanted to be an independent filmmaker. Comics was not what he wanted to do, but he fell in love with it. Then it talks about, kind of his early 20s into his 30s, being somebody who's trying to be an independent artist. So it's funny because Jeff Lemire did not go to art school in the way that a lot of comic artists do. He was just kind of doing his own thing. He went to film school, but after he got out of school, couldn't really find a job. He was working in a kitchen. He was working at a restaurant, trying to make ends meet. He had a wife. They were trying to do things to have that kind of life. And he said, I needed to do something else. I was at this weird place in life where I had to make a decision, and I saw a 1-year postgraduate thing for comics. He applied for a grant and got it, and therefore was able to kind of take that money and actually help publish his first work. That's what set him off. The man, was not an instant success. He over like a course of about 15 years, 12 to 15 years, just kind of grinded away until he eventually did become a little bit more successful. Talks about the development of all of these ideas. Black Hammer is a concept that he came up with very early on. Gideon Falls, not Gideon Falls as we know it, but at least the character in Gideon Falls and kind of the early seeds of conceptualization was one of the first stories he ever came up with. And he just knew it wasn't ripe and was not ready yet. And so he let those things kind of marinate in his brain. And, he went on to do things like Underwater Welder and Sweet Tooth, to Essex County, writing these really personal stories, and developing his sense of self and his sense of storytelling. Never thought he would do Big Two comics, and then finally got a chance, kind of a one-off, and got a taste for it, doing some DC characters, which he loved. I thought that was fascinating. His style happened by fluke. One of his professors, and the thing, was kind of this avant-garde guy, and was saying, would take and tell him to do all kind of different things. Walked by one day and saw him kind of trying something with a brush, and he said, no, take that brush, turn it around, dip the back end, the actual handle in ink, and draw with that. That developed a lot of the style that you see in Essex County, just as kind of this experimental thing. And so he talks about that, talks about taking risks, talks about figuring out who you are as an artist and developing and being, willing to take risks with his art. One of his mentors, and it's a name, I don't have it off the top of my head. It's, I went and looked him up and going to find some of his work on, from other comic stores, but one of his mentors was a gay Canadian cartoonist who wrote these kind of really kind of sexy, funny stories about gay life, completely different than what we see Jeff Lemire do, but became very good friends and was a very big influence on Jeff Lemire's life. So if it wasn't for queer comics, we wouldn't have Jeff Lemire. I mean, I think that's an insanely important thing to the development of what we see here. The personal stories and the personal levels that he gets into, he talks about, we always hear about artists and, how important mental health issues are and things like that. But he goes back and says, hey, he had an alcohol problem at one point in time. He had problems with depression. He's very open and very honest with that, and the kind of person that he was when he was experiencing that life. That's important. That's important to read. He gets into kind of getting past the things that he needed to get past to be able to develop the story and open up these worlds. Talks about how his storytelling formulates. He lets these ideas bounce around in his brain, and he'll have 2 or 3 different ideas that are independent, and he'll mesh them together at some point and create a whole different story. Just very, very open about his writing style, his writing experience, and what it takes. I thought it was fascinating getting into some of his connections with film, working with Essex County and the failures of Essex County, how it took forever to get off the ground and what it took for him to run the show. The experience on Sweet Tooth, first I think it was picked up by Hulu and died on the vine, and then Netflix got it and turned it to a hit success, but he had no creative control over that. And so it was watching these people who, these characters that he brought to life being, they treated him well, he said. They brought him to set and they would talk to him and everything, but they made it very clear he had no actual input over what they were going to do with the show. And it took some different leaps, whereas the book of Sweet Tooth is kind of dark with these little specks of humanity and these little, beautiful blossoming, almost innocence to it. Netflix did the exact opposite. They gave you a really childlike, innocent world with little, darkness in the foreground and stuff like that, but it was very shielded. And he said that was a creative choice that he didn't necessarily agree with, but it worked for what it was. And it's also funny, you learn that some of the people who were in the Essex County show, who were cast and who were the leads in that show, had auditioned for characters in Sweet Tooth and didn't get it. And so I thought that was fun as well. So it is a fascinating book. It's wonderful to climb into the mind of such a creator and to have him in his own words tell you his story, to see the sketchbooks, to see the development of some of these things. The first time, one of his first stories is reprinted, or honestly printed for the first time in here, I think, as far as being printed on the mass production scale. So seeing some of Jeff Lemire's earliest work. At the end of the day, I love the people who make comics almost as much as comics. And any chance I get to where I can go back in time or just go back and I can read the life and read what these people think and what they have to say, and the very real world connections that happen to them, the experiences they have that then evolve and emerge in their work. I really enjoy doing that, whether it's modern creators like Jeff Lemire, or you go back and, you can read some of the, the interviews with Gil Kane, and some of the experiences in the life of these early creators. I am now kind of on a hunt for any type of writings or books or interviews that were in print of Bill Everett. I would like to learn more about him, the man who created Submariner, just because I just finished reading a lot of his work. And stuff. So I'm now looking for those things, and there's lots of books out there. Also gives me a chance to remind everybody that our friend Zach Crucy wrote an amazing book on Steve Ditko and gets into his mindscape, and some of his history and stuff, which you all should read that, and is producing a movie about Ditko, which, I'm not sure when the release date to that is going to be. But I cannot wait to see that. So yeah, if you're not following, go to Ditko Movie and follow our friend Zach Crucy, and the stuff that he's doing, and then go read his book. And it just, really tap into the life of these creators from an academic standpoint. But if you're a fan of Jeff Lemire, if you're a fan of Jeff Lemire's work, this is a book that you can't miss. There's lots of fun stories. There's lots of fun anecdotes, but really it is the life and story of how he's developing, not developed. Like the last part, he said, "Hey, I don't think I've produced my best work yet. I think that all of this is building up to some amazing things. And man, if the best Jeff Lemire work has not been done yet, then we are in for a treat, because what he has delivered is arguably, or I won't say arguably, in my opinion, is some of the best comics that have ever been created. And I'm just such a wholesale fan of what he did and what he's done and what he will do, and the expansive nature of what he can create. So go pick up the book. It is published by Dark Horse. So Bill, Dark Horse, tying in with you. And if you pay full price for this, you'll be paying $54.99 in the United States, $72.99 in Canada. But you can pick this up on places like Cheap Graphic Novels or other websites at a pretty good discount. It's beautiful hardcover treatment. You see some of the Underwater Welder stuff, which Underwater Welder is one of my favorite stories. He distills the human condition down into the most beautiful, messy, vivid visual black and white lines that I think you can produce and see. So go check it out. It's a wonderful, wonderful read.
Yeah.
And it's a fast read. For a book that is encyclopedic, for a book that is text heavy, I mean, you have pages of text, right? Like it's not all pictures. It is a fast read. It is a very fast read.
And my favorite picture of it, if I can share it, where is it that you sent that I just absolutely love?
Yeah,
that is just great. So
if you want to buy your pet comic books, go down to PetSmart. They have got a DC section of PetSmart with Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, little fold-out, squeaky toy, crinkly comic books. And so I bought my dog's comic books, and they love them. So we read together.
Lemire's somebody I've read a lot of his stuff. I've read a lot of his stuff, and he's somebody that even the ones that miss the mark are worthwhile.
Yep.
Yeah, I think of something like Trillium, that was almost there. It was almost there. Like it didn't deliver for me, but boy, there's no way I wouldn't have read those issues. Yeah. So he's somebody, he will continue to be a powerhouse. I love that he has a foot in mainstream comics and in, the more esoteric stuff that he does. So, I'm just glad a book like this is out there. You had mentioned Bill Everett. Do you have this?
I don't. And actually, so I saw that the other day online, because I'm looking for things now, and I added it to my to-do list. I'm trying not to spend money right now because we're going to Greece at the end of the month. So, but that is on my list of things to get soon.
It's worth it. Also from Fantagraphics, and if you like the exploration of the artist and his lifestyle, look into the books about Fletcher Hanks.
Okay,
they're insane. They're insane.
And I know that there's groups online and there's threads. I want to do. I would love to find a place where I can really hunt down and see if I can find old like magazine or fanzine issues where Bill Everett, or just creators in general, where they've done interviews or written articles in those magazines.
Yeah, I don't collect them. But he's like kind of a generation that wasn't really in play.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, there's certain people, like Bill Finger. I would have loved to have heard his opinion on stuff. Unfortunately, they didn't have, the comic reader or, even a resource like Word Balloon, that back then would have been good. The closest thing I think maybe would be the Will Eisner tapes. Yeah. Where he did interview people, and some of those were interviews in the 80s of people who were active in the 40s. You might want to check that out.
Yeah, well, if somebody wants to, like I mentioned Gil Kane earlier too, there's a book called Sparring with Gil Kane where they take and do both articles and transcripts of some of the interviews that Gil Kane did at Comic Stuffs. That's really good. Like you just get to see how much of it, like you start to understand more about Howard Chaykin by understanding more about Gil Kane. who he kind of was an acolyte of too. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting of 3 of the writers that we spotlighted tonight, and Matt Fraction, James Robinson, and Jeff Lemire, are all writers who have been very open about their past issues with alcoholism and addiction.
Yeah.
Been very upfront about their experiences. So it's interesting that was, half of our books were written by people like that.
As I have been sipping on a gin and tonic.
Yeah.
Finish my cider.
My Scissorp was something different.
Yeah.
I'm dying here.
But look, I mean, I think that not only is that important, I'm being very serious. Yes, I'm having a drink right here, but I've been very open and honest with the fact that I've dealt with and deal with an alcohol problem, in my history and stuff too. I mean, there were times where nothing but for the grace of my husband, that I still have a life and a family, and so I'm to a point now where I can have a drink every once in a while, once a week with friends. But that was not always the case. I mean, I was sucking down bottles of whiskey a day at one point, and that monster gets a hold of you and it doesn't want to let go. And you don't realize it at the time, but it darkens the world around you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that he talks about. And you look at his old art and it was dark, but it was visually dark, not just kind of tonally. And I thought that was a good metaphor. So, I mean, it's there, and reading about that can help you. It really can.
Yeah. You had mentioned Zach Crucy pretty briefly, talking about
every time.
Steve Ditko, and that, for anybody who's listening and watching, it is issue number 199 of the Comic Book Bears. Or if you go back into our live, I believe it's in February of 2021. So you can watch Zach talk about it or listen to Zach talk about Steve
and we
Ditko.
Certainly have reason to talk to him again.
We absolutely do. We need to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear more about the documentary. So
yeah. All right. Well, I guess we've wrapped up our chat, so we're going to start putting this episode to bed. And when we start with the wrap up of an episode of the Comic Book Beers, we have 2 segments that are end segments. The first of which is where we show off our geek gets, things that are genre-ish that we've picked up over the last 2 weeks. And I'm looking at faces and it looks like, God, we might not have much. Steve, do you have anything who normally doesn't? You do have something.
I
so
do.
Let's see it.
So, like I said, I got one Kickstarter book that I talked about tonight, but I also finally received a second Kickstarter book that has been in the works for a very long time. And in fact, there was a point where they almost were not going to go ahead and publish it. And I just received this past couple of weeks, and that is the Good Omens graphic novel. Good Omens, of course, written by Neil Gaiman as well as Terry Pratchett. And after the issues that have come out about Neil Gaiman over the past couple of years, there was some hesitation to go ahead with it. But of course, Terry Pratchett is the other half of that of the author group on this. So the Pratchett estate wanted it to continue. Gaiman, for his part of it, he basically said, "Don't worry about it. Like, please go ahead with this. I don't want any profits or anything from this, from the sale." So they have been hard at work getting them published, and finally they were able to be received. And it's a beautiful book. I have not opened it yet, but I've seen quite a bit of the art, and it is by Colleen Duran. Good old Colleen Duran, who, classic artist.
She's a good choice for that material.
Oh,
perfect.
She's a very
good choice for that.
Perfect choice. And, so if you love the original novel, if you love the TV series, if you've seen that, definitely, if you can buy a copy of this, which I don't think that they're available just yet. I know that the Kickstarter, they want to fulfill those first before these were made available to the rest of the public. But it is £25 if you are in the UK. I have no idea how much that is in US dollars. Not that you can actually get a shipment right now. Hopefully soon, when postal services start shipping again to the US. But yeah, Good Omens. That was my geek.
Cool. All right, over to you, Caleb. What about you with Geek Gets?
So my Wolf of the Week is a musical Wolf of the
Nope.
Week.
Geek Gets
Sorry,
first.
I got ahead of myself. It's still the same thing. It's still the musical thing. I just got
Yeah.
twisted. So I am on I mentioned earlier, I'm on a shopping hiatus. I'm trying not to spend unnecessary funds right now because I'm going on vacation to Greece at the end of the month. I won't be here for a week. I'm going to miss an episode. I'll send you pictures from the island that I'm on. But I, very jokingly said, "Hey, I'm not ordering. I promised my husband I'd stop ordering albums right now," which was a really stupid thing to do because there's been some amazing albums come out over the past 2 months, and I'm going to have to buy like 7 things as soon as I get back in the country. But having a very good friend who is both a hip hop head, a sweetheart, and also a manager of a really great record store in Berkeley or in Oakland, California, has its benefits. So my friend Ray sent me the 2002 EP from the hip hop duo Soul Position. Soul Position is made up of producer I always mix this up because I want to say it's RJD2 and then the rapper Blueprint. This is jazz bass hip hop, and it is fantastic. If you haven't heard this, do it. It is amazing. It's silk, man. And so it is great hip hop. So if you have not listened to this, go check out. They've had an EP and I think 2 productions since. But Soul Position, it is play it loud, man. It will make you smile. I promise. If you like hip hop, so that's my geek get this week. Thank you, Ray. Love you, brother.
Cool. All right,
Awesome.
for my geek gets, I really haven't gone out much in terms of shopping, but I did get a couple things. Comic book store I went to was having a blowout on laser discs. I know, and there's no reason for me to buy laser discs, but there is one, and that's Cary Grant. So I did get a copy of Bringing Up Baby on Laserdisc, and
Wow.
there's him, there's Kate, and there's Baby. And if you've never seen this, it's a great comedy that holds up, really holds up. Howard Hawks directed it, really good film.
I own one Laserdisc.
Yeah, I now own like 8.
A Time to Kill of all things.
Of what?
A Time to Kill of all things.
Oh, okay.
Huh? I don't know why.
All right. And then with my motion of becoming the slowest collector of Superman, of the Superman line from Spin Master, I did get another edition. How could you say no to The Hammer of Boravia?
The Hammer of Boravia.
He's added to the collection.
Nice.
And he does like this thing. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna mess with it right now, but I am the Hammer of Boravia. No, I'm not. I'm some dude from New Jersey. All right. Well, we're going to go on to our last segment of the show, which is something we call the woofs of the week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar here where we woof at something, which might be comic book or comic book related, but it also may be a film or a television program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week is actually a movie that I caught this past weekend, or actually on Labor Day, and that was the new Caught Stealing by Darren Aronofsky. And if you have watched other Darren Aronofsky movies before, they run the gamut from being extremely deep and dark to being just depressing as all hell. This was basically Darren Aronofsky riffing off of Guy Ritchie. It takes place in 1998, so you've got the Twin Towers in New York City. Austin Butler is a bartender. Zoe Kravitz is his girlfriend and an EMT. And Matt Smith of Doctor Who fame and many other things plays his British punk friend Russ, who asks him to take care of his cat. And that sets off a series of extremely unfortunate events for Austin Butler. It's violent, it's wild, it's crazy, and yet it's funny and optimistic no matter how many horrible things happen to poor Austin Butler's character. there's some glimmer of hope and light that permeates the whole thing. And I have to say, this is one of those movies that you have to sit through the entire thing, and you have to watch the end credits because for some reason they decided to go all National Lampoon's Vacation on it for the end credits, which is so not Darren Aronofsky. And so unexpected, but this movie definitely one of the best dramas of the year that I've seen. So, some great turns from like Liev Schreiber and Vincent D'Onofrio, and even Bad Bunny makes an interesting appearance. And so is oh my God, what is his name? Action Bronson with a shaved head, looking pretty damn good.
All right,
has a bit part. So,
all right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
So my wolf of the week goes out to it's going to go out to the Van, right? And that's the organization I'm very much a part of. It's kind of self-aggrandizing, but I don't, it's not my organization. I just volunteer with it. But and the reason I say that, we announced this week that we are buying a new building, and we own a couple buildings right now. One is our warehouse. We also have a farm that we do. But the reason this building is important, for the last 9 years, and how I got started with the Van, I tell that story. How I got started with the Van, I saw a Facebook post. It was winter. It was about 23 degrees, and they opened up an emergency shelter, but they needed volunteers. They needed help. And I had a husband that worked nights, and I was off work because I used to do contract work. And I'd go off and work months at a time, come home and just twiddle my thumbs. And I needed something to do. So I went and helped out. That's how I got started. The emergency shelters are not our main thing. We don't do all year long, but that's a big part of what we do when it's super cold. For the last 9 years of doing that and going on my 10th year, we've always had to use somebody else's space. We've had churches that have let us come in and use their space. We've had government buildings that have let us use their space during COVID, some different organizations, but we've never had a place of our own that was dedicated. We always had to move in and move out. We were always subject to the whims of those other places. If they had things going on, we couldn't use that building. We bought a building that we are going to now be able to use as a dedicated emergency shelter, and I'm very excited about it. We're getting to set it up and design it the way that we want to, make sure the layout is good, make sure it meets all of our needs. When it's not, 20 something degrees in Arkansas, which is most of the time, we're going to be able to use it as a store. We have never resold anything before, and we held off against that for a long time. But we have a lot of stuff in our warehouse that people donate that we can't get rid of. It's weird stuff, Halloween costumes, giant heels, just oddball things. I mean, somebody donated a meth pipe one time, and we've gotten penis extenders. We get so much weird stuff that people just grab their closets and donate it to us, and we can't use. And so we're going to have a thrift shop where we actually are reselling some of the things that we get. Some are going to be clothes and things like that. People donate suits and nice stuff. People who are living outside don't really functionally need suits and that kind of thing. So we're going to be selling things that people don't functionally need and that we can't functionally use and are just taking up space. But the other thing is, our organization owns about a little over 5 acres of land, and we farm it. I don't do it just because I don't really have time. But Aaron and the rest of the crew, he's got a team that goes out. They've got green thumbs. They love the farm life. They grow fresh vegetables. They grow fruits, and they take these out to people who live in camps they have the ability to cook. They just don't have access to fresh fruit or fresh vegetables. And so they take it to them. But we also sell it to a lot of amazing restaurants here in the area that we grow tomatoes and we grow okra, which is nasty, but everybody else in the South loves it. But we grow pumpkins and we grow trees and we do all these different things. And we are going to take those and we sell them around to turn that money into tarps and tents and things that don't get readily donated, and water and gas for the van. But we're going to be able to also keep that around to where we can sell things out of there, sell plants and vegetables, kind of like a little farmer's market. And it's going to be a very, very big thing for us. It's going to be kind of a game changer. So I'm very excited about it. We've got some very good people in Little Rock who are trying to work hard to make life better for the folks who need that to happen. So very excited about this. So Wolf of the Week goes out to my friends and my brothers and sisters who keep the van going. This is great work.
Very cool. And Steve, just make sure that we have the links for Caleb's stuff.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have two woofs of the week. One is serious, one's totally not. The first one I wanted to, and this was not a woof until something happened this afternoon. If you watched RFK Jr.'s testimony today, I mean, he embarrassed the shit out of himself and the rest of humanity.
Yep.
And he is beyond unfit. And I hope that at least in the eyes of some people that may have been willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, that just conquers. I mean, it was just that is vanquished because it was one of the most embarrassing, the most embarrassing testimony I've ever seen before a governmental body in the United States. And there is a progressive commentator. His account is Oh, That's Rich. It's O, two H's, That's Rich. And he relates the story of, this happened today, of his son when he was 7 years old, was battling RSV, and what that does, especially to young bodies, how it attacks the lungs. It attacks the lungs very differently from asthma, and you just hope that the body gets well fit enough that the lungs can survive an attack. And seeing his video about this, and him relaying a 7-year-old, and yet again, a lot of this testimony was about childhood diseases. It really affected me. So I've been subscribed to this guy on various platforms for many years at this point, but I just wanted to give him a bump. Oh, That's Rich on basically every platform, but I tend to enjoy him from Instagram. Just some very powerful, quick 2-minute messages are his kind of forte. And like and subscribe. And then my enjoyable one is, since Monday night, it's all been Oasis. So I was trying to find something, but hell, let's just go to the band at their peak. What's the Story? Morning Glory. They performed 8 of the 10 songs from the album on Monday night. The California shows are coming up this weekend. The Bear Illuminati, I assume we're going. So at least according to Tito. So if you want to revisit or visit for the first time, a band at their peak, What's the Story? Morning Glory from 1995 by Oasis. So
can't believe it's from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Listened to it in high school. Oh man.
Yeah. I really felt old when when they had the battle for number 1 with the single between Blur and Oasis, when that was 20 years old. So yeah, I feel very old. Very, very old. But I got a shirt and I enjoyed myself on Monday, so over the week. Okay, again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. We thank you for joining us tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube a little later, please like and subscribe. You can listen to us through many of the podcatching platforms, through Apple Podcasts, through Spotify, a bunch of them out there. If you want to write to us for some reason, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. We are on most of the social media sites as Comic Book Bears. On Facebook, we are Comic Book Bears Podcast. And, again, we just thank you for, I have to say I was warmed by, we had a spike in the downloads this month. I don't know why. There's no real reason. Maybe Superman. But the numbers didn't really bear that out. We had the movie episodes, which tend to do pretty well, especially on YouTube. Not so far yet, but we'll see as time goes on. But we did get a bit of a spike this last month, so thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yay.
All right, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Maybe this one won't, because he'll be in sunnier climes.
Yep.
But at least you'll get these two bozos up top here in 2 weeks. So until that time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
If you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof.